David Morris, the co-founder of the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, director of the Institute's Initiative on the Public Good, author of 5 books, including New City States. The website ilsr.org is on the line with us. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks a lot, Tom. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. So I thought this was fascinating. This article over on Alternate, the headline, I don't know if you wrote the headline or if they changed it, because they do that frequently. What the rest of America can learn from Alaska over drugs and privacy?
Yes, I appreciate it. They write the headlines. They're always better than I am when they write the headlines.
Me too. Same here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wrote the piece because one of the main themes in the United States right now is, when does individual liberty trump state regulation, and vice versa? It's not quite a left-right kind of debate, really, but it is one of the more important debates. And in Alaska, they've been having that discussion for almost 40 years, and it's related to the issue of drugs.
So how?
Well, in 1972, Alaska, and we should remember that Alaska only joined the Union in 1959, so it was a very new state. And in 1972, overwhelmingly, 86-14, in a ballot initiative, the citizens of Alaska amended the Constitution to insert a privacy clause. Now, there are about 10 states that have privacy clauses in their Constitution, but Alaska's is the simplest, the shortest, and in some ways the strongest. It reads, the right of the people to privacy is recognized and shall not be infringed. The legislature shall implement this section. So that went into effect in 1972, and the same year, someone was arrested for not arrested, but given essentially the equivalent of a traffic ticket for possessing marijuana. And he refused to sign the ticket, and it went to court. And in 1975, the Alaska Supreme Court decided that the right to privacy extended to the right to use marijuana in one's home. And so therefore, one was allowed from 1975 on to possess marijuana and to use it for personal use. It was a major breakthrough, and no other state has ever defined or interpreted their privacy clause in the same way.
Yeah. And why not?
Well, that's a very good question. I think in some ways the other privacy clauses are not quite as strong. They say the right to privacy is a constitutional provision unless the legislature decides otherwise. I mean,
well, in this case, the way that the state Supreme Court ruled was that, the rationale of their ruling was harm, right? That the state can interfere in your privacy if it does so to benefit, to prevent harm to the larger public, not necessarily to protect you from harming yourself, which is the old rationalization, but to prevent harm to others. And they concluded the pot was so harmless that it fell under the privacy protection. On the other hand, when people came before them and said, okay, how about cocaine? I want to use cocaine in my own home. Am I protected? And they said, no, you can die from an overdose of cocaine. You can't die from marijuana. And so cocaine, and then it came to alcohol, right?
Yes.
Tell us about this.
Alcohol, and with alcohol, they said alcohol was more like cocaine than it was for marijuana. Now, Alaska in 1979 gave communities the right for what's called a local option, which means that even though alcohol is legal to consume and to sell in Alaska, communities can ban its import and its sale. And so someone was arrested for importing alcohol into a community, and it went to the Supreme Court, and he argued that he was protected under the privacy provision of the Constitution, and the court looked at all the evidence and decided that, in fact, alcohol is a major epidemic in Alaska, especially in rural areas, and decided that his privacy rights were trumped in that case by the state right, in fact, duty to protect its citizens.
Right.
And so you have these three decisions. Marijuana, cocaine, and alcohol. And each one, the state very, I think, judiciously, very deliberatively, looked at the body of scientific evidence and data related to health harms for the community in general, and decided in the case of marijuana that clearly it was not harmful enough that the state had a compelling reason for overriding the privacy provision. In the case of cocaine and in the case of alcohol, in fact, they did have a compelling reason. Now, in November of this year, Alaska, by an overwhelming vote, legalized marijuana. So now Alaska is legalized for recreational use in all of Alaska, but many of the communities, and there were 50 of them, that have exercised their right to have a local option provision in their communities, and therefore they ban the import of the sale, and in some of them the possession of alcohol, are now asking that the new law, which is now being written based on the election in November of in a couple of months ago, that they include a local option, and they probably will. And so communities will have the right in Alaska to say that the sale and the import of marijuana is illegal within their borders, and you probably won't be able to smoke it on the streets, but they do not have the right to ban its possession and use in the home because of the Supreme Court decision in 1975.
Yeah. Now, with regard to the alcohol thing, I think most people are probably surprised to discover that there are cities in Alaska that have banned alcohol within their cities. But these are, by and large, correct me if I'm wrong, by and large communities that are all or heavily weighted toward indigenous people who have a long history of struggling with alcohol abuse.
Yes, indeed, that's the case. Although Barrow is the largest community that bans not only the import but also the possession of alcohol. But essentially, you're right that it has been an epidemic among the indigenous people in Alaska, and the death rate and so forth, the health rate. I mean, the data was enormously compelling, it seems to me, when the Supreme Court made its decision in the middle 1980s.
Right. And the odds are that while some of, there may be a somewhat similar problem with marijuana dependency or abuse, it's not going to, if somebody is unemployed, can't find work, and instead of sitting around drinking themselves into a stupor, they sit around and smoke themselves into a stupor, at least 5-10 years down the road, they're not going to have blown out their liver.
Well, that's true. And in fact, a number of the communities that have exercised their local option related to alcohol voted in the majority in favor of legalizing marijuana. So it's going to be an interesting debate. And I would imagine that within those communities, when that debate takes place, you'll see the same sort of, I hope, the same deliberative process. They're going to certainly rely a lot, I think, on the Supreme Court's evidence, their evidentiary, aspect of their decision in making their own decisions. And so you're going to have a debate in, it may be 50, it may be 25 communities in Alaska as to whether, once again, the safety aspects of marijuana are such that the community should override the right of people to use it.
Is there any indication that any of this might be going viral to the rest of the country? We have just a few seconds left, David.
No, it is not at this point. There are 10 other states that have privacy provisions. It isn't clear, and those privacy provisions have never been used to protect the use of marijuana. On the other hand, marijuana has been used is now legalized in several states and will be legalized in more states. But I think that issue of privacy and the relationship of individual liberty to state regulation is one that Alaska can inform.
Yeah, marvelous. David Morris, the co-founder of the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, director of the Institute's Initiative on the Public Good, author of 5 books, including New City States, ilsr.org, the website. David, thanks for dropping by.
Thanks a lot, Tom, for having me.
Great talking with you. We'll be back.